I'll let you in on a secret. Politics and its attending journalism is not like a school where you're corrected and graded for being right or wrong. As often as not, in politics, you're given good points for being wrong. The traffic in attempts to reason with politics can be seen very vividly in the Democratic Party's stand concerning Gaza. The idea that muscleheads are behind Donald Trump overlooks the fact that might makes right is the founding theme of the Democratic Party, too. You don't really, if you're wise, expect better. If you believe that you can affect things by arguing what is right against what is wrong and in the majority and given points, you're in very big trouble. And it's not good trouble. Contrary to the myth of good trouble, it is the worst sort of trouble. It's trouble with the people who believe they're only capable of good trouble. In other words, no matter what you say, no matter how right you are, no matter how worthy your contribution, you will be singled out as bad trouble, and you will be in big trouble. We see the alignment from the way that the British Workers' Party sizes up the situation that comes from the closing of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in terms of mind control, which is what the actual field of journalism has become. And they know that the boys in the locker room, weaponized news, aren't going to do anything but check their viewpoints against the nativism of Lisa Miles. And it's not going to add up to taking seriously what happened. It grinds out warnings about what happened. Gail Burstyn is free to go. The nativism also gets support from the former Black Panther, who believes in standards of musclehead behavior, which are nonviolent to pull together with the community ethic of an administration in a college so that we get by. It's administrative. But the Official Secrets Act of England makes negotiable the principles of the Fourth Estate, the First Amendment in America, because they want a unified voice. So they put together what Miles Kirshner calls a Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee has ruled that I was property to sell as an infant because I was born 6 months from Adolf Hitler, and they wanted to play a practical joke. And they sent me things from Yoko Ono, like Ono fan glooming, when Shiono had me in their community trust for vengeance of Shiono. and I was terribly, brutally harmed. And the speculators came along. King Crimson gravely overestimates their value. They've tried to make their value grounded in spirituality, but what they've done to Gaza changes things pretty severely. What I want to talk about really doesn't pertain to the nativism of people who get a laugh in the squirrel cage bar about Israel's revenge for Auschwitz while pretending to be all abominated by it. The Sandbagger Alliance, who produced Robert Card and Timothy McVeigh and Peter Schell and Saul Brecker and Tony Levin and Brian Eno and Jaime Carbonell and Vladimir Putin, and the song and dance about Leslie Katz as a cover story for the AIDS attack, which is what it was. As shown by the communications I arrested from Will Zell Brown. Now, the way that the Iran-Contra situation, Iran funding Contras, pertains to Will Zell Brown is a source of considerable consideration and discussion today, because Iran is supposedly being victimized by America, or America is supposedly being victimized by Iran. But a deal was worked out in those days between Oliver North and the Ayatollah with the help of Michael Foucault to wink at what Zell was doing and to fund the Contras. It was when Daniel Inouye, get that name, Inouye, Susie Cream Cheese, what's got Inouye, heard Oliver North say someone asked him about his plan to transform the human race by injecting blood. Wait, that's Zell. About his call to suspend the U.S. Constitution. And Inouye hammered his gavel and said, let's not talk about things that close to national security. It might trigger the British rock stars operating under the Official Secrecy Act. That was the unsaid text of his hammering magic gavel. What was he talking about? He was talking about the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Federal Emergency Management Agency was evoked in a plan to not transform the human race by injecting the blood, supposedly, but to suspend the U.S. Constitution. And that was naughty for the good senator to request information about. And Inouye hammered his magic gavel. Nah. So the Federal Emergency Management Agency is the centerpiece of Inouye's cover-up on behalf of Oliver North and Iran-Contra. The Federal Emergency Management Agency Constitution was written by Wesley Posar, the Chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh, whose number 2 dude, Milokovsky Kushner, Miles Kushner, was Reagan's attorneys from Mount Desert Island. He conveniently had me in D.C. the way day Reagan came out and waved to me and pretended he was shot. Does that make Zell part of that apparatus? Yes, it does. Because Brian Richmond was well acquainted with the details of Leslie Katz's mob story. And he weaponized that news to cover for Will Zell on Mount Desert Island. And Lisa Miles came in saying, just So we're going to rescue this country by sweeping all that under the carpet. That's obvious enough. You can ask anybody in the hub who knows about Boris Obama and Daryl Fleming. You can ask anybody who knows Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. Killed Hillary. You can, obviously, anybody who knows Tune. We're going to sweep it under the carpet. And the former Black Panthers will establish a standardized explanation for the most moral army, which are people like Jay Epstein.